You're listening to She's the Business podcast.
A players don't work for B leaders. This is a saying that I've heard many times over the years, but it's something that we should all be paying attention to, especially now that there are so many businesses out there. All of us are wanting the best people to work for us and with us, even if they're just, I would say just a contractor, even if they are a contractor or a VA or somebody that's not a formal employee, yet they are still very much part of your team. And trust me, when you're in business, you want the A players on your team. You want the best people. So that's what today's episode is all about. How do you get yourself in the position to be the one who attracts the A players, to be the one that they want to work with? Because trust me, these days, everybody is interviewing the employers as much as we're interviewing employees. And you want to be top of their list. So please stay tuned.
Hi, I'm your host, Jessica Osborne, and in my 23 years of business and marketing, I've built many brands to become multi-billion-dollar companies. And just in the last 10 years, I've built 2 online businesses of my own from my dining room table with 2 little babies running around at my feet. I've made it my mission to inspire you to get out of your own way and become the successful business owner who's living the lifestyle you really desire without all the hustle. This is She's the Business podcast, made by women for women. This is your weekly dose of motivation and inspiration.
My very special guest today is the lovely, vibrant, and full of energy Kelly Stone. She is a freelance content writer and employer branding strategist, the founder of Craft My Content, where she writes, really vibrant, human-centric recruitment communication. She really understands how to use brand voice and to create a brand personality that stands out to really grab people's attention these days. She's super qualified in business, HR, journalism, communication, and she's worked with all sorts of organizations on getting their recruitment and employer branding to really pack a punch, stand out, and attract the right people so that you have the A players on your team. So without further ado, let me play the interview for you. I know that you're going to absolutely love what Kelly has to bring for us today, and it's super relevant for you, even if you're not yet an employer in the formal sense of having employees in your business. But if you're working with anybody, even outsourcing something for a few hours, then this is 100% relevant to you because, yes, you are employing them to work for you and your business. So let's play this interview right now and enjoy. Okay, and I'm here with the lovely Kelly Stone. Kelly, thank you so much for joining me today on She's the Business podcast. I can't wait to get into this conversation with you.
Hello, thank you for having me.
That's okay. Now, Kelly is the founder of Craft My Content, and she's a bit of a specialist in employer branding content specifically, which is really what we're talking about today. Why do you need a standout brand that's more than just a brand for marketing, but actually a brand as an employer? So Kelly, can you tell us a bit more, just before we get into all the nitty gritty and amazing content, but a bit more about, who you are, who you work with, and how did you even get into this as a thing? So
how long have we got? No. I am a content writer and strategist who communicates punchy employer brands to help them create positive candidate experiences throughout the recruitment process, but also to help them with that education piece to inform their ideal candidates about who their brand is before that candidate is even looking and ready to apply. So it's just about managing the communication throughout the entire candidate journey and even, I guess, before they become candidate. So fun story about how I got here is I studied journalism and comms at uni. Never worked a day of it in my life. I was a classic fell into recruitment story and loved it. And actually it was when I got into graduate recruitment that that I loved it and loved what I did. And as part of that, I was actually doing grad recruitment for a government department. And I'm sure that we've all experienced interacting with government departments, and they're not usually lively or personable. It's quite
That's
dry.
a polite way to put it.
Yeah. And I don't want to burn bridges. Yeah, it's usually dry. It's very formal, and it's more about covering their bases, I guess, when there's information to be communicated, rather than focusing on how can we communicate this in a way that is best going to engage our audience. And being in the graduate space, like we're talking about, I mean, it was Gen Y, but it's the same as Gen Z. Like, they don't like jargon, they don't like that stuffy corporate tone. And so I guess it was just organic, this opportunity for me to kind of weave in my creative writing, and I just naturally created this personable kind of brand through the social media posts and through the candidate emails and things like that. And I didn't know of anyone doing it the way that I was doing it back then. And so it just became such a joy that I wanted to do that full time for other organizations.
You know, held on every word that you're saying, like, wow, what a cool story. Yeah, I went through many government recruitment things back in my day as a potential employee, and you really had to stick with it because they were not interesting or exciting or fun to read. So I think only those really committed kind of get through in the end, don't they? Now, what did you see as a big difference that happened when you came in and started sort of injecting a bit of personality into what was previously lacking any personality?
Yeah, it was, I mean, my own joy for one. work was more enjoyable, but from the candidate's perspective, they were actually engaging and communicating back with me. And like, there were some of the emails that I would write out, like I'd get some of the grads would write back and say, oh my God, like, I can see how much you care and I wish I had known this sooner. Or, it was, I could definitely see them experiencing a more positive interaction throughout recruitment, and also with grads. Sometimes it's the first job that they apply for, or at least, I mean, there's not really a recruitment process when you apply for a bar job or a barista. No. But this is like a pretty formal and pretty high value opportunity for them. So yeah, definitely getting that sort of feedback, but also with other vendors, like partner vendors, they were even saying it's amazing what you're doing, because no one is out there, no one is communicating this way, no one is showing this personality, and you're like a breath of fresh air. And yeah, so we saw there was definitely higher applications definitely grew, but it's one of those things. It's like, is it because of the communication that was being put out there, or is it just enrollments? But there were definitely positive effects to come, so it was good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess then jumping forward to today, right now as we're recording this podcast, especially here in Australia, there is an absolute employee shortage. I think everybody's on a recruitment drive, so you're getting loads of applications. So what is it that makes having a strong employer brand really important for businesses? I guess in the days where you're really struggling to find talent, you needed that brand to attract them, right? That would kind of be the core need. But in a saturated market where we're like, we really need people and we're all out there, we're all recruiting, what is it that helps them? Why is it so important in the first place?
Yeah. And the thing, I think employers, because it's a candidate-driven market, I think for the first time employers are finally experiencing what the consumer side of the businesses has been experiencing for years previous, like, small businesses who you have to have a standout brand because the online market is saturated. And I think now employers are like, oh crap, this is us now. Like, so it's absolutely critical to stand out, because there is, like you said, there is so much competition, but the way that people search for and consider opportunities and employers is very much the same way that we search for and approach product or service-based businesses. So it's that consumer behavior and consumer expectations are kind of aligned, or they're like, it's trickled through now into how we apply for jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And so if, for me, as an example, like I won't go to a new cafe without first checking the Google reviews or checking what their score is on Bean Counter to see if I'm actually going to have a nice coffee there. Like that's just for a $4 cup of coffee. We're talking about something significant. Like some people change locations, like they'll move for a job. It could be mental stress as well. Like if they don't enjoy it, it's like, well, I've just wasted 3 months of my life and I'm miserable and now I have to go to therapy. Like there are big things at risk when you choose an employer. And so making sure that you build, you have a quality employer brand, but you need to be communicating that, and you need to be communicating to your ideal audience to help them make an informed decision to apply when it comes to that recruitment process.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Like I've heard that, nowadays the candidates are almost interviewing the employer in the interview.
Absolutely.
And like you say,
they should
probably,
too.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, gosh, it's not like you're just happy to have a job anymore. I guess, people are more on I want the right job for me. And because we can do so much research, everybody's out there researching and probably choosing who they even want to apply with, right?
Absolutely.
And this may not be, you might be sitting there thinking, well, when someone needs a job, they need a job. And that can be true, but I think it's about the talent. So if you're like, you want to be an employer who's attracting the best talent, like you want the A players, those A players, they can choose. They can pick and choose. So.
Absolutely. And like as a you would consider me a contractor who, like I freelance, like I don't have a boss. And I am so in demand at the moment that I am able to pick and choose the projects and the clients that I work with. And so it's like, well, can I find enough information about you? Do I vibe well with you? Do our values align? Like that all comes into my decision making, because it's like, well, if I have a finite amount of time that I can dedicate in a month, then I want to make sure that I'm working with people and on projects that are going to fulfill me. So that is, one way of looking at it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really important point, because, we might be sitting here thinking, well, I'm not an employer right now. I've got a business and I might employ some contractors or people that have their own business as well. So, maybe you're hiring people for services. But like you say, like when there is choice, if you're trying to hire someone who's really good top talent, they've probably got lots of other people also wanting to hire them, and they can pick and choose who they work with. So, if they're doing their research and they can't really figure out what you're about or whether you're going to have a good connection, then you're probably not going to be on top of the list. They're probably not going to be saying yes to you. So that's really good things to think about. And there was just one other thing. I was like, well, I remember back in the days when I was in corporate, like there's a big cost in actually bringing on new people, like in the turnover. So as an employer, like you don't want to be doing this all the time, because the amount of time and money that it costs you to hire a new staff member, you want to make sure that you're getting the right ones, which is partly about making sure that it's a good connection. And I'm sure we don't all want to be sitting here looking through hundreds and hundreds of CVs, right? We want to we want to be attracting the ones that are a good fit for us up front. So would you say part of it's even about, yes, about attracting, but maybe even repelling some of the ones that you don't want?
Absolutely. And that's why it's important. So at the moment, we're in a candidates market, which means that there are fewer candidates to jobs that are available. And so it's on the employer to be marketing themselves, to make themselves attractive to their ideal candidates who, like we say, have a lot of other choices that they can be going with. But then when it's an employer's market, when there's hundreds of applicants and everyone wants to work for the same employer. You don't, like you say, you don't want to be going through. Who's got time to go through that many applications? And that's why nailing your messaging and having that a strong and consistent brand out there, it is absolutely as much about attracting the right people as it is about repelling the wrong people. And so yeah, that's why employer brand and messaging is super, super important in either market, whichever way the wind blows, you know.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I love this. So tell me about, what are the important factors in creating a standout employer brand? Like, what do we need to be thinking about?
Yeah, so I come at this maybe differently to other people, I'm not too sure, but for me, a lot of it is based in your personality, and that is how your brand is showing up online, in the way that they write, in the way that they communicate. So you want to be thinking about the language that you're using, the tone that you're using, but also how you want your audience to feel. And I think that that's often the missing piece that people kind of forget. Like, not a lot of people enjoy writing. It's probably one of the things that I hear most is I'm not a writer, I hate writing. But so there's so much focus on, we're just going to push this message out because this is the message that we want to tell people, but they're not necessarily thinking about, well, how do we want our audience to feel when they interact with us? And so that also influences your personality and your language and how you kind of show up online. So for me, that would be the first thing, is really nailing your brand personality and your brand voice for all interactions. And that's, so your consumer brand and your employer brand and your community brand and any other brand, it all needs to be aligned. It's just your messaging and your tone may shift with the different audiences because you're obviously you're appealing to different senses here, but the brand needs to be consistent. It needs to be aligned. Otherwise you look, as I call it, like, you know, a bit like yeah, like I was going to say senile Grandpa Bob, but yes, Jekyll and Hyde. It's like, you know,
we've got this fun brand for our products, and then that's like you go to the recruitment and it's all like, oh, serious,
so
boring.
It's like, oh wow. And the reason that that's an issue is that creates distrust. It's like, well, which is the brand I'm going to experience in the workplace? Like, are they going to be fun, or do I have to be serious and be there chained to my desk from 9 to 5 being watched over by a micromanager? You know, like, it's making sure that you've got that consistency there, so you're managing people's expectations and they know what they're going to get when they finally walk in the door and work for you. The other thing then is your positioning. So if you want to stand out, it's all well and good having a personality, but having to think about what do you stand for? What actually makes you different? Why should your candidates or your ideal audiences, why should they care about you? And that's that, you know, what's in it for them as one. But having a think, is there an area of expertise that you want to be known for? Do you want to be a thought leader in a specific space? Are you an industry leader? Are you super innovative? You know, what's your angle? It could be your business mission, which is where like the not-for-profits and that can be, and the social enterprises can really make their mark and stand out, is because they have that beautiful mission that's driving them. So yeah, having a think about your positioning and how, like, what makes you different to your competitor? Why would someone choose you over your competitor? And then emphasizing that in your communication. And that will lead us to the third one, which is having consistent on-brand messaging at every touch point. So for the candidate journey, they could be consumers, like they could be, you know, brand ambassadors. They could love products that you're selling, or they've, you know, used your services before or something like that. So they already know who you are and they think you're amazing and they're signed up to your newsletter. So how can you be kind of grabbing their attention there and communicating your you know, what makes you so special as an employer? I'm not saying it's, you know, you don't want it to hijack your consumer newsletters, your subscribers, but it's definitely an avenue that people, I think, don't explore, they don't tap into that. But it could just be just social media scrolling. If they're checking you out, like maybe if you've got regular thought leaders if you're a larger organization, you might have people that are posting for themselves, but obviously they're attached to your brand. So they could be finding you organically that way. Then you're looking at the job ads specifically. You're looking at LinkedIn emails if you're doing cold outreach. You're looking at throughout the recruitment process, like every single email and SMS throughout the entire process. And then you're looking at onboarding. And if you are building a talent community, then it's like, how are we nurturing them? So there are a lot of touch points, and I probably haven't even covered all of them. Like it's just a fraction. Like, there's word of mouth, there's Glassdoor reviews, like there's a lot there. There's a lot out there. And it's just making sure that when you understand who your ideal audience are, then you can make sure that you are showing up where they are online in a way that they enjoy. So some people don't do blogs, but they do podcasts, like that kind of a thing. Making sure that you're there and making sure that your messaging and your brand experience is consistent. And that is how you're going to become memorable, is because you're going to be known for that. And they'll come to, rely on you and expect to hear from you on those platforms.
That is so good. I've just been sitting here absorbing all that and obviously thinking about
very excited.
No, but you've raised a few really, really important points. And I think that, on the surface, it can start to feel complicated, like, I've got to think about all these touch points. It's like, no, let's just make that really simple for a minute, because what you're saying is your brand, whether it's what you're doing for marketing for your company, this is a really important extension of your brand that shouldn't feel different. It should actually feel the same. So instead of this feeling like, I've got to think about all these touch points, it's like, no, you actually just have to think about a consistent voice, a consistent message, and your brand being consistent. And the only difference, like you said, is maybe your candidates aren't your customers. Maybe they are, in which case, fantastic. It makes it even easier for you. But I've been in companies where, we had like who we're marketing to from a service and product point of view. Yeah, there was a bit of a difference in the candidates that we wanted to bring in, but it was about how do we bring our brand personality, our values, and everything that we stand for through, and then make that relevant to the people who we want to attract as talents. Because it's about thinking, well, what is relevant? Where are the connectors? And you might emphasize some points in the, candidates versus for the buyers who are going to buy your product. But it's all the same. It's all coming from the same place. It's not suddenly we've got these different values over here than what we've got on the other end. Like, it's all the same core messaging. It all comes from the same place, which is what builds that consistency. And I think that it doesn't have to feel so complicated. It can just be like, remember, when you think about recruitment and or even bringing people on as contractors, this is actually still part of your marketing. You're literally marketing to someone, not because they're going to buy from you, but because they're going to give their time and their energy and their effort to you to help you with your business. So you still have to sell your business to them, which is, when you think about it like that, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And it's a lot more simple. Now, can you tell me, what do you think are the biggest mistakes that you see people making when they're in that, recruitment place, when they're employers out there trying to attract people?
Yeah, good question. I would say, there's a few. Let me think. One would be, and this is something I'm really trying to change, but it's just that reliance on job ads as the only recruitment strategy. And it's like, okay, I'm just going to pull out this job ad that we used 4 years ago to get Sally. Sally was great. It worked for her. Maybe we'll just add 20 more bullet points because it's changed, but they don't take any bullet points. So then you just end up, 10 years in the making, this mega Frankenstein job ad. It's not tailored to the current market. You haven't evolved the benefits or the offer for what candidates want. It's just, so rehashing that same job ad, sticking it up on a job board, and then basically,
Job done.
Dusting your hands off, job done. Let's wait for them to come in. Some people are, these days, they're using LinkedIn InMail, but again, it's really cold. Like I was talking to a developer the other day just to kind of get an understanding of their journey. And they are like, recruiters are, I don't know how many any emails that they're getting a day, but let's just say it's going to be a lot because tech talent is in such short supply. And so it's like, we're trying to get an understanding, well, what does a developer actually want? And they're like, they hate hearing from recruiters because it's just so cold and it's so salesy and there's no what's in it for me. So having that, understanding your audience so that you can kind of perfect your pitch that way. But so that same generic, impersonal, that cold approach is definitely one of the things that the big things they're doing wrong. I would have to say with the actual language and tone and style of voice, it's that falling back into like the recruitment cliches, like exciting opportunity and hit the ground
it's
running.
Just like real estate ads, isn't it?
Oh my God, they're the same. They're actually the same. It's terrible. But
yes,
it's that. There's no personality. So it's like, okay, well, we need to be professional, and this is what professionals have been saying since the dawn of time.
Yes.
And there's no flavor. There's nothing unique.
Pet peeves, I think. And it's like you see an ad and someone's just copied and pasted the responsibilities out of the job description.
Isn't that terrible?
It's dry as and they're like, that doesn't sound exciting. That sounds boring as batshit. Like, why would I want to apply for that? And
because when you think about a job, like a job ad means job advertisement. And it's not the legal. It's not the legal, like a job description serves, this is me getting my HR hat on here, but a job description is basically, it's a legal document to help with performance tracking and metrics. And so people are sticking it up there that just, be expected to be doing some filing. Well, what job doesn't do filing? I do filing. You know what I mean? Like you don't need to describe in minute detail.
Someone's not thinking, gosh, I hope this job has filing.
Yeah. Oh, great. So it's like, writing it to sell. Oh God, passive voice.
Yeah. Because I think all those like bullet points, they tend to get written in the passive voice, like, managing, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh gosh, really, can we just talk to someone a little bit more conversationally about what they're going to do and make it sound fun and exciting? So yes, they're really good, really great mistakes. If someone's thinking, well, okay, where do I start, or what should I do? How do I do this well? What would be, your biggest pieces of advice? I know you've given us the 3 points to think about with your voice, your personality, and being consistent. If it's like step one for somebody and they're thinking, I've got to put out an ad now, what's one just thing that they could focus on to have a good result for what they're looking for?
So assuming that you your brand personality, I won't get into that. It's understanding your ideal candidate. So you need to understand their motivators. And if you're not sure, the way that you would find that, you could survey. If you do a lot of recruitment, then survey previous candidates. That's one way, but you can also, given the state of the market at the moment, just run a Google search and just say, what do accountants want? What, type it into Google, there'll be a report. Someone will have statistics on their motivators, but also understanding that motivators also differ depending on like gender, seniority, discipline, location as well. One of my clients, they're a recruitment agency, and they were even saying that the candidate sentiment has shifted since COVID. And in places like Sydney, you would expect, salary is their biggest driver, but it's only just in front of flexible work and work-life balance. And they have just like climbed up and closed the gap on that. Whereas you go to Brisbane and salary has jumped into first place by a long shot. Yeah. Whereas in the past, Brisbane people pretty laid back, love the work-life balance up here in the weather. But
so interesting.
Absolutely. So it's just learning what your candidate motivators are and making sure that you're and this is, you have to be authentic. It has to be realistic. We're not painting this fake portrait of what life is like working with you, but just making sure that you have the benefits and the perks and the rewards that are going to attract those candidates. And then when you write that job ad, you need to be like, so what does my ideal candidate care about the most? And you lead with that. You lead with the hook. which is anything in marketing, that's what we do, but lead with the hook, because you need to grab their attention and entice them to want to keep reading. But if you lead with something like, we're an ASX listed company, it's like, oh man, what is that?
And how does that, does that really matter to me? It's like, it's way down the list, right?
Absolutely. And that's what, and then, like, good point, is because, like, if it was an executive position, they do care. They care about financial stability. So you may want to have that up high in your lead statement. But so that's why it's just so fascinating, is like, know your audience, like, know your ideal candidate, and you need to be perfecting that pitch so that when they see that, they're like, yes, I want to learn more. And just get them to learn more, and then have the more information on your career site, send them to your LinkedIn page where you've got employee stories, or your Instagram page where you've got employee stories or case studies, whatever it is, like, but you need to give them enough information that that they're either ready to apply, but they'll probably want to learn more. And so just making sure that you can back that up with more.
Yeah, I love that. And it made me think, you mentioned about it needs to be authentic. And that means you're not just standing around some of these words that you've heard. I'll give one of my pet peeves is, we're family friendly. Well, what on earth does that mean? And are you really? Like, there's so many places it was like, it became the thing to say. And it would, like, you'd see every single company saying on their, employer page, we're family friendly and we support flexible working. And then you find out that their idea of flexible working and family friendly is like, we love people who have families, but we don't want you to be taking time off or
to be with them
from home. We just like the idea of it. We know that it's a good buzzword, so we're going to put it in there. I think this is really important, like you're saying, like, know who your candidate is. So, if somebody's thinking, well, I was going to say family friendly, what are some considerations that they might need to think about? Because that probably is a big one. Like you're saying, work-life balance, it's kind of all merging into one. What does that really mean? It's about their time. But what do you think if someone's thinking, I need to have some of these things nailed? What do they need to be saying so that people can understand what they mean by it?
Yeah, and that's where you just be transparent. And I think that is something that is missing from all business communication, is that there's this fear of being open and transparent. And it's like, but that's what's going to connect with people. That's what they're going to value. So flexible work is a big one to focus on, because, everyone these days is like, COVID forced the lockdowns, it forced businesses online, and so everyone's like, we're flexible working, but we force you to come in 4 days a week and you can have 1 day off, but we also expect you to be answering emails at 8:00 at night and checking them first thing in the morning. Like, is that flexible? Or I don't want to give an identity away, but there is someone in my life who is under a flexible working arrangement, and when they are working from home, they have to log in at whether it's 8 or 9, whatever their start time is, they have to log in and then send their manager an email that says, I'm logged in. And, it's like, is that like, there's no, and then that's distrusting, and it's like, well, that doesn't feel very authentic. But some things you can think about supporting that is, okay, well, if we're flexible working, like if we support work from home, then it's like, okay, how are we going to do that? And so thinking then, like, physically, what does that look like? And that could be offering a $1,000 budget for them to cover some home office setup expenses if they haven't got that already. Or it could be, you know, because of that, people who are remote first, so they only work online, I shouldn't say that. I should say work is bleeding into the personal lives. There's no clear cutoff. And so it's like, well, for us, that work-life balance, for us, that means that, you know, Fridays you finish at 3, don't read emails after 5, and you embody that by not sending them emails after 5, you know, like, so it's just getting really clear, like, instead of just saying that token, yeah, this is us, it's like, okay, what does that look like for us? And being really clear on your benefits and how that shows up, like, physically in reality, what that looks like.
Yeah, because I think it's so different from, you got to kind of change or look at how you're perceiving or what your expectations are, because going from an office environment where there's probably like pretty set start time, finish time, give or take, you know, people are there from 8 to 5 or 9 to 6 or whatever it was. And then when you're working from home, how does that change? Because you know, it's like some people just have this expectation. It's like exactly the same, but you're working from home. So,
no,
it doesn't need to be, and does it need to be? Should it be, or is it actually just more about, are they getting their job done? Are they achieving the tasks that, you know, their responsibilities, and at the same rate that they were doing when they're in the office? You know, that trust level was something that I think people have struggled with for such a long time, and COVID kind of have forced a lot of people's hands. And guess what? Heaps of people found out, wow, we can actually trust people, and this does work, and like they do get their job done.
They're more productive,
maybe even more, because they're not doing so many chats around the office anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I certainly felt that, you know, I was always so much more productive at home, but there was this strange undercurrent of like, oh, you're at home, you're slacking off, you know, you're not really
listen to
engaged
Boris Johnson,
focused.
who was saying that everyone's having cheese and tea breaks and they're not getting any work done. Did you see that it was a few months when he was still Prime Minister? Yeah, he came out and he was encouraging government workers to go back to the office, because he's like, you're just eating cheese, you're just snacking on cheese and having cups of tea, like, and it's like, what? Like, I actually do more.
How is that different to the government office?
Yeah, true. Jokes.
I have a lot of tea. Yeah, I know there's this strange perception there that's like, if you're at home, you're not really working. And it's like, well, I think we really need to examine, you know, as an employer. So like you're saying, like, get really clear on what you're saying, what your values are, but what that really means, and examine, well, do you have any sort of preconceived notions or things that you've maybe just brought with you, but that might need to be re-looked at? Like, what do we mean by that? And if you try to explain it, write it down, because if you're not doing it in your ad, then by the time you're at the interview, you're definitely going to be getting asked about it by the candidates, because they're so savvy on this stuff. And it's really important for that younger generation especially. But, you know, I think everybody should be asking all of these questions about anything that they do.
One of the things that can actually help in your communication, and that is from the early stage when you're actually considering, oh, what are we offering? What does this look like? And, you know, how do we demonstrate this? You can actually ask your people. You can do, if you've got a team, of course, that you have working with you already, you can actually ask them, what do you think of flexibility in this workplace? How has it affected your life? So you can use their words to influence your marketing, but you can also document their stories. So another client that I'm working with they're a remote first policy, and so I've been interviewing some of their employees, and one of them, like, they applied for the job while they were living in Melbourne, but because of COVID, like we said, like, it's just encouraged us to reassess what our values and our priorities are in life, and how we envisage our life to look. And so this particular person didn't want to be stuck in one location. This particular person wanted to travel while they worked. And so the story that that company can use is that they hired them in Melbourne, which is where their head office is, but she's 3 months into her job and she's living in America. And she's been onboarded and she's working quite autonomously. But then that business is obviously, and they've got someone working in Asia. I can't remember which country it is, but so it's like managing the time zones and then having the structures in place so that, you're going to have your team members at least spend, some time clocked on together at the same time. But yeah, so supporting remote first. Here's this awesome story. Here's how we're supporting that person. And here are the structures and the benefits and the stuff that we have in place to make that a reality. So yeah, employee stories are also amazing.
Yeah. I was just going to say
with consumer stories, but
yeah, I mean, you mentioned that right at the beginning, having stories to share and using story. And this is such a great way to really show what that means as an employer is using your employees' stories, what they're doing and how it's working for them. And I think that goes into really understanding what are your values and your expectations as well right up front, so that you're hiring the people who will suit the way that you're able to work.
Because you're not for everyone. And that's the same, when we talk about the consumer or the service brand, is you're not for everyone. And as an employer, you are not for everyone. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's actually good to know that, so that, you can perfect your pitch for the people who are going to thrive in your organization and in your business. Yeah, that's really important.
Yes. Oh, I love it. So many things I think we could chat about with this. So, thank you. But I think that's been a really insightful episode. For me, I don't have direct employees right now. Certainly will do again in the future. I have contractors, but, I was sitting there thinking, well, what am I? When I'm hiring people to join my team, even though they effectively have their own business, but they're still coming into work for me. Like, it's really important that I'm thinking about what my brand is as an employer, in that sense that they're actually going to come in and add the value that I'm expecting, have a really good experience. So it works for both of us, because when it's not working, then we're not actually achieving what we want. Like, we're not getting the right output out of the people, and it is a big waste of time and money in the end of the day. So
absolutely,
it's really important for all of us. So yeah, I really appreciate your time in sharing that with us today, Kelly, and so many great points. Hopefully everyone's had a pen and paper and been writing some of it down, thinking about how your brand is extending into you as someone who hires people, even if you're getting a VA, your first VA, then it's still, this is all relevant to you, because they're probably sussing you out before they agree to work with you.
Yeah.
So thank you. Do you have any final point that you'd like to give us, or let us know where we can connect with you and learn a bit more and follow along for all of your awesome advice that you give?
Yeah, so I actually double down on LinkedIn because, and this I guess is another hot tip to leave you with, but because that's where my audience is. But we spoke about this earlier. You can kind of get a little bit overwhelmed with this obligation to be everywhere, and it's like, no, just focus on your core audience and a core platform, and just do that really, really well. So for me, that's LinkedIn. I have a lot of fun on LinkedIn, share a lot of tips. So I think my handle is Stone Kelly, so you can find me there and connect with me.
Amazing. Thank you, Kelly. I will make sure that is in the show notes so they can come and find you on LinkedIn and follow along, get some great tips from you for how we can be unboring in our recruitment, but maybe also in the brand as well. It made me think there's so many parallels, especially, cutting and pasting your responsibilities is a bit like just listing boring bullet points of features on your services page.
we can do so much better. That is your 101, and let's lift it up into, what are we, 2022. I think we can really actually connect with people and use words that evokes emotion and connection rather than just information.
Yeah, love it.
Love it. Thank you, Kelly, and
Thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
If you're tired of working really hard to attract the right clients into your business, then you're in luck, because this week is the last time in 2022, Business Jam is open for enrollment. Now, Business Jam is my signature program for consultants and coaches who want more freedom, more fulfillment, like working with the people who you really, really want to work with, and are profitable, and also having flexibility in your business, which means that you're working the hours that you want to be working. Now, Business Jam is a framework, a strategic framework, and I will show you how to magnetically attract the high value clients that you really want to your business every month without you wasting your precious time doing any sort of cold outreach, slaving away on social media, or even sitting back and relying on those inconsistent referrals to drip in. So if you love the sound of this, you want to get your business to where you envision it being this year, then now's your chance. So please head to jessicaosborne.com/businessjam to learn more and enroll today before Friday when the doors close, and that will be the last time in 2022. So head to jessicaosborne.com/businessjam and learn more and enroll today. If you happen to be listening to this late and you've missed that deadline, then pop your name on the wait list, because there are opportunities to join Business Jam in the near future. I will let you know as soon as doors will open again. Okay, thank you and bye.